Okay, just wanted to show my whole Devastator build. First thing I want to mention is damage over time mods like Death Chains and Sandstorm and Ravenous Locust. I've learned they activate your weapon leech healing in this game. So that's also why I stuck Death Chains on my pistols, because that with Scrap Grenade makes them the perfect balanced gun, especially for Eye of the Storm, where I can basically still have a means of activating weapon leech, still doing a decent chunk of damage because of Death Chains. And then I'm able to destroy the anomaly rifts because of the Scrap Grenade, which is the real reason I have Scrap Grenade on it. My main, though, as you saw, has Sandstorm because that's basically the ultimate healing. And then obviously I use Moaning Winds, Radiation Slash for my secondary for that giant chunk of damage. Plus it destroys rifts too if I really need to use both that and Scrap Grenade. But I will say this build can solo Eye of the Storm carrying people and without destroying the anomaly rifts. It can get hard and hairy if there's like tons of them on the field and I don't have Golem out for whatever brief time I have. So I still just find it's just more easier to just destroy the rifts, and then I really can carry people in this build and not even have to worry anymore on this build. And as you see, I'm kind of just keeping. I don't want to have to get more ammo for my primary. So I also found out like my pistol, especially at moderate ranges, is still really good since I can kind of lob both the Scrap Grenade and Death Chains off who I'm shooting. And honestly, doing that makes it do a little bit more damage than my primary does anyway. Most of my damage you see comes from the Despair mod on Gravity Leap. So this build I deliberately, as you see in my skill tree, I deliberately maxed out kinetic cooldown. So my Grav Leap is just totally maxed out. You see it has just a 7.6 second cooldown on it. Now when you use Gravity Leap twice, you do quad damage with Despair. So how I'm able to still do that, and I do a good chunk of damage still on this build, is, I just double tap Gravity Leap, use Moaning Winds, and immediately try and get another boosted anomaly damage off whatever other secondary I'm using. Whether it's my pistols in this case, get like double quad damage off Scrap Grenade 2 before it runs out, before the cooldown on the debuff's done. Or the damage over time with my primary, Sandstorm and Death Chains is nice to like alternate them. So and then also that debuff really helps my team. That's why it's a really good debuff, especially in this game, because whatever I'm hitting Gravity Leap on, any teammates using anomaly damage on what I'm hitting are also going to get that double and then quad damage. So in this expedition, if I'm with like a Pyro sometimes or a Techno, we can like take down the boss like 4 times, like within a minute or less sometimes, even without them having some finished build, just because I'm helping them do so much more anomaly damage. And as you saw, the biggest thing also is I give Golem to my team, which is why I maxed out also my skill tree and my gear. I maxed out the cooldown and the duration on Golem. I effectively have Golem on over 2/3 to the time. I think maybe close to 3/4. It's like somewhere in between. Basically, I have Golem on over half the time. And then when I did the math, my teammates have Golem on almost half the time in the whole expedition by just, constantly spamming it. So that is insanely good. I use the statue set, so that way I get the weapon leech buff for myself, the weapon damage for myself. That's like, okay, whatever. Helps my weapon leech a little bit, a tiny bit more. It doesn't really help my damage. Also, the weapon damage does not help your team, so the main thing is just weapon leech. But that's why this build is so good, because let's say I'm with like a Firepower Trickster or Techno build. I'm making them doubly tankier because I'm making them have Golem half the time, and I'm doubling their weapon leech all the time, because as you see, I deliberately alternate between Tremor and Golem. I don't need Tremor on when Golem's on, because I'm already invincible with that. And then when Golem's not on, Tremor has the perfect duration to give me a ton of healing from a mob if they're near me. And I have the mod on it, so that also gives me a bunch more armor and health regen, so even if I don't have a crowd near me, that mod alone helps me be just slightly tankier. And that with my Grav Leap and Weapon Leech healing, I can usually easily just stay almost at full until Golem's back anyway. As you see, my grav leap also heals me back to full. I just need to hit one dude with it to get back to full. Once again, that's also why I deliberately max out the cooldown of Gravity Leap, because it really is the best Devastator skill in the game for both an offense and defensive thing. You're invincible during the duration of it. You can move anywhere on the battlefield. You do a gigantic debuff, a decent chunk of damage, and you heal yourself back to full with just one hit if you have a life absorption mod. So it basically is like a Techno's fixing wave for the Devastator. So yeah, that's... What else can I say about this build? Like, that's like all the supports. As you see, I'm destroying some rifts with my pistols just to show you what they're used for, but as you see, I'm kind of just ignoring the rifts now, because I'm like, when I'm soloing this, I don't really need to destroy all the rifts, because he only summons 2 at a time. The real thing is when I'm carrying 2 players and he summons 6 at a time and they're not doing anything, so if I'm carrying them. So then I will just constantly just stop and destroy all the rifts every time he summons them. And I like the death chains on my pistol, because what it lets me do is I can pop those death chains off on him, so I'm still getting some real good weapon leech healing for a few seconds while I use the scrap grenade to destroy the rifts. So, you know, I'm still staying alive just fine if my golem's not up for whatever reason. I don't really know. What else? Well, I mean, you saw I maxed my base health regen. That's the key to this build, is I just have a lot of means of staying alive. Tremor alone just helps me stay alive if I don't have a mob. It's got the health regen and armor. I got a bunch of base health regen. I got a bunch of weapon leech, and I use death chains and sandstorm deliberately because they activate my weapon leech. I now have a good means of destroying anomaly rifts without needing anomaly or firepower damage on this build. I get a maxed out golem. I help my team with that maxed out golem. I help my team with weapon leech. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. So if I'm with a firepower build, I'm not really helping their damage, but I'm helping them stay alive really well. When I'm with a techno, I notice a techno usually just never dies now with me, because a techno has weapon leech built into it, so I'm always doubling a techno's healing as well as giving him golem. And with a pyro, if they're not using firepower, the weapon leech might not help them at all. But then, like I said, my massive debuff from Gravity Leap helps the pyro a lot, and he still gets the golem thing. So that's why this is such a really good support build. And just as ultimate of a tank as I can make it. Like, make it do good support and still be as huge, massively tanky as possible. And still do good damage. And honestly, the key to all of that is just maxing out Grav Leap with the best mods on Grav Leap. And then maxing up Golem. Maxing up Golem and Grav Leap is really the key, while just picking up as much health and health regen as you can. That's why when I went the statue set, I deliberately made it so you saw in my gear, I only have 1 firepower piece rather than 2. So it has as much health as possible.